we're in Seattle, Washington, and we're going to take you on a cruise along the riverbank so you can see the city from the water side. Taking it over to Palace or wherever the hell it is. Okay, this is about the After taking the monorail over to the boardwalk, we found our boat that we're going to hop on. And here's Lars, one of the crew members. And this is Stephanie, who accompanied me on this great tour. So this video is narrated by Lars. So I will go ahead and let you listen to what he has to say. He has a lot of information on the whole area that we go by. And I got this picture for my friend Shane, who used to be in the Coast Guard.
Stairwell on the first deck, and in the cabinets behind the pilot house on the third deck. Placards with the
50th anniversary this year. We've been doing this for quite a while. 1 hour harbor tour going on for many of those years. Obviously, a lot changes in a busy city like Seattle over 3/4 of a century. A quick example of that is the wheel lift, built here back in 2012. I guess one of the newer additions to our waterfront, standing at 175 feet tall there at Pier 57. Just beyond the wheel, and I think really one of the true gems of our waterfront, that's the aquarium at Pier 59. The blue pier, white shimmer around the windows. Anybody been to the aquarium yet? Quite a few hands up. I'm sure others maybe have plans to go check it out a little bit later. This aquarium is a little bit unique in the fact that you're not going to find like shows or performances necessarily here. This is more of a research and education-based facility. I would say the main draw of this aquarium are going to be the sea otters. Cutest creatures you're going to find just about anywhere. And one of the sea otters there is extra special. Her name is Mishka. And Mishka the sea otter actually does know how to do one trick, and that's how she basically knows how to use her own inhaler. She developed asthma back in 2015, and she knows how to bump the little inhaler with her nose to self-medicate, which I think is a little practical and also pretty adorable. So she's a star. There's all sorts of other really cool exhibits there. But actually, just about Pike Place is the #1 most visited spot here in Seattle. Definitely, if you go up there, you're not going to be alone. It's a busy spot. I would never call it a tourist trap, though. I think Pike Place is a really authentic part of Seattle, a place that's been around for about 117 years now. So there's something for everybody up there, whether you're looking for a cup of coffee at the oldest remaining Starbucks in the world, so you can find that up there. Go up and check out the fish market, which might be the most quintessential Pike Place experience. Not only can you go up there and get fresh fish, you can also just watch it fly across the counter from one fish to the next. That fish toss is always really cool to see. Places to get produce, comic books, artwork, you name it. You can find it up at the market. You get about 500.
Do you want a piece of banana nut bread?
We're going to finish up our tour, about 2:25 or so. I always recommend you try to go to the market sometime between like 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Sort of the normal business hours for anywhere, but I think the market especially, you really get the full experience going there. You're in the middle of the day, even though there are cool restaurants, bars, and stuff open after hours. It's best to try to hit it between 10 and 5 sometime later here in Seattle. And again, if you haven't been up there yet, just a short walk before we can finish up the tour. Anybody in Seattle for really kind of a bigger reason of going on a cruise up to Alaska?
Yeah.
Hands up. We have the Norwegian Sun just ahead of us in October. Looks like they're loaded up with their passengers. They'll be getting off the dock in about 3.5 hours, right around 5 p.m. is usually when they leave. This ship will be making, I believe, a 9-day trip up to Alaska and back. Just about all the cruises that we see out of Seattle go to Alaska. Just about all of them are 7 days in length. The Norwegian Sun seems to make longer trips, usually 9 days. A little bit more time on the boat that way. Yeah, feel free to wave at anybody that's waving over at us. Talk about the space a little bit later. A couple other things going on around us right now. I'm going to start with what you see underneath the needle, just off to your right. You might see some cool sculptures on the hillside. That's all part of the Olympic sculpture part. That red one up there on the hill is called Eagle, by an artist scientist named Alexander Calder, who has an exhibit going on at the Art Museum right now, but sort of an abstract piece depicting an eagle's flight motion. Try not to make you look back behind us too much throughout our tour, but if you look back at about our 4 or 5 o'clock position, way over your right shoulder, you might see the big face looking back at us. Is what that's called Echo, based on Greek mythology, supposedly looking out towards the Olympic Mountains. Yeah, the goal today is not to talk your ear off for an entire 60 minutes. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. This is a pretty informal, laid-back tour. If you see something that I'm not talking about and you're curious about, definitely let me know. Take a little break off the microphone, about 15 minutes or so, and that's a great time for questions too. But again, if you see something, just let me know. We can chat as we cruise along. As we get a little bit farther up here, we'll pass by a really nice area off to our right. It's called Myrtle Edwards Park. I think this is the most underrated stretch of our waterfront. Myrtle Edwards Park, nice area if you want to go for a little jog, walk, bike ride, or just hang out and look out over the water. If you were in town yesterday, the day before, the last few days, you've noticed the incredible sunsets that we've been having. If you're looking for a good place to watch the sunset from, this is an awesome spot. This is obviously facing out to the west, looking out over Puget Sound. On the west side of Puget Sound, you have the Olympic Mountains. The sun, of course, sets on the west side of those mountains. And so, if you're looking for a good sunset viewing opportunity, again, this is a nice spot for it. I'm not sure if we're going to have the same type of sunset we had last night. Thankfully, it seems like a little bit of that wildfire smoke is cleared out. Visibility's a little bit better, but one silver lining to those smoky nights here is the sunsets are, I guess, that much better. Again, I think we should still have a really nice sunset. One thing you're not going to see a whole lot of down here is people out swimming in Elliott Bay over the weekend. You know, it was getting up into the mid to upper 80s. That was the case this weekend too. Not a lot of people out swimming in this water. That's because this water stays really cold. Obviously, we have a lot of other big companies based out of the Seattle area too. There's Amazon and Microsoft, Starbucks.
It's Expedia.
Costco.
Expedia, that's where we call right there.
Kirkland Signature. Kirkland is a city on the east side of Lake Washington. I forget if I mentioned Boeing already, but they started out in Lake Union over 100 years ago. So a lot of big companies based out of this area, but Expedia, as well as Starbucks later on.
The Royal Caribbean ship.
As we get around
Bottom
here, the north end of the bay, we'll look like 2 more piers before we make our turn and head back down to the south.
One of the biggest ships that they have out there right
has
now.
the beige complex on top of it, a couple fishing boats out next to it.
Look at that big bear on the top.
Fishing industry out of Seattle. We're going to see a little bit of fishing going on today during our tour, and I'll talk about that later. But pretty much all of this commercial fishing that's done by the boats based out of Seattle is conducted up in the waters off of Alaska rather than here in Puget Sound. This brings us though to the Quantum of the Seas, and this is the longest cruise ship that we see here in Seattle all summer. It's 1,140 feet in length, which means it would be the tallest building in Seattle by about 150 feet. We stood it on its stern and put it in our skyline. It also has some really cool amenities. Now, up there on top, if you look at the top deck, closer to the bow, there's that crane arm that has a little glass ball on the end of it. That's called the North Star Gondola. That'll lift you about 100 feet over the top of the top deck. If that's not enough to get the adrenaline flowing. Back there, also on the top deck, close to the stern, is that blue arch with a clear tube in the middle of it. That's indoor skydiving. There's also a rock wall out over the side. These things have everything you'd ever want to do right there on board, and this has capacity for about just under 5,000 passengers. So get off the dock probably closer to 4 p.m. or so, 3:34 or something like that. Make its trip up to Alaska. We see this one here.
It's in rough shape. Oh, I don't
They
think
give these ships
it's
basically
Oasis.
12 hours to pull into the dock early in the morning, get all the passengers off, get all the sewage, garbage off, get new food on for the next trip, board another 4,000 passengers after they get the sheets all changed on all the beds, get all the preparations done, and then they get off the dock within that 12-hour window. It's really amazing how quickly they turn these things around. All right, we're gonna start to make our turn here and kind of cross Elliott Bay. So over the next few minutes, we'll start to get a nice look at our skyline off to the left. Great time for photos. Before we kind of get really lined up for the skyline, you want to just mention some of the other areas around Puget Sound. I'm going to start with what you see ahead of us and off to our left. This land is about lake right now, so be careful if you're up walking around and drop in a pretty good way. Once you get over to Bainbridge Island, everything's super walkable. So a lot of really cool restaurants and shops over on that side. And then when you're ready to come back to Seattle, again, just walk on the ferry. We'll be back 35 minutes later towards the top. The second to highest floor is pretty unique. That one spins around, so just one track for about 45 minutes. You get a whole 360-degree view of Seattle as the 140 floor does all the work for you. And you can actually look down through your feet at everything down below. There's glass paneling in your feet. Gives you nice views down to the ground level, which is probably not super enticing for everybody, but if heights are even kind of your thing, I think it's worth that trip. I'm a little distracted right now talking about the space hill. If you look kind of backing off to our left, I see porpoise jumping all over the place.
Better pictures from afar.
Get a little bit farther along the bay here. Continue to kind of look out for wildlife. Maybe see some sea lions as we get down to the south end of the bay. Right now, I want to just tell you about a couple more buildings and I'll jump off my see lion for a while. All that's really in Seattle is at the other end of the spectrum. Straight up from the wheel that we passed by at the start of our tour, you'll find the Columbia Tower. Columbia Tower is just under 1,000. Nothing's taller than 1,000 feet. I'd say the biggest reason for that is all the air traffic you have in the city. Dry docks. These two dry docks, both have ships up inside of them right now. Dry docks are going to be the great U-shaped structures, and how they work is the walls on either side of them are hollow, and there's valves down below. So they can open the valves. At that point, they start filling up with water. The structure sinks down below the surface. Vessel can be positioned in the middle. The water is then pumped or drained out, and the ship is lifted up out of the water like you see right now. So these things are incredibly buoyant. And actually inside of the dry docks, at the moment we have the one that's farthest to the right, USS Barry, a U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke class destroyer. So it's a Navy ship based out of Everett to our north, just getting some work done on it. And then next to it, a Washington State ferry up out of the water as well. These things are wrapped up in plastic here, and it's hard to not to hide anything, but really just to make sure stuff isn't getting into the water as they wear things. Might also hear some barking off to our right.
There's
Gonna be those sea lions.
There's some sea lions right there.
So if you look off to our right, there's this netting that comes around. It's all connected by a big metal bar, and up on top of that bar, you'll start to see some of these sea lions.
You see them?
Yeah, they're up at, see them, they're
Dozen or
on.
so all together, up out of the water, and then just on the inside of the fence, I can see some other ones swimming around. These are all going to be California sea lions. Actually, every single one of these is going to be a male. The way you can tell is just by knowing that we don't have any female California sea lions here in Puget Sound. We only have males. The males migrate up here from places like California and Mexico. They usually come up right around Labor Day. This year they were about 6 days early, so just about a week before Labor Day. They came up here, and they're gonna basically stick around for the fall, the winter, and much of the spring. And they're gonna be basically bulking up on the salmon that are here in Puget Sound. Once they bulk up, they'll head back down to their native beaches for better chances for mating and territorial rights. So in the spring they'll head back to where the ladies are, and hopefully have a better shot down on their native beaches. You can definitely hear them right now. Let's see a few out of the water too. These are pretty territorial and also definitely really vocal, which you can hear right now. I mentioned they're up here for our salmon. We have 5 to 6 salmon species in the world living right here in these waters. Only missing the Atlantic salmon who haven't found their way around here yet, but these salmon are really super important to the whole ecosystem out in these waters, and not only are they relied upon by the big strike now. There's not a lot of commercial fishing that takes place in these waters anymore, except by some of the local Native American tribes that have been fishing out here for generations, hundreds of years, using these gill nets. So this is not really a practice of fishing that too many individuals are allowed to do, but again, these local tribes are still fishing in this way, and we'll see a lot of examples of these donuts spread out throughout our tour today. If you are interested in the salmon, one really cool way to learn about them and actually see them face to face is to go to the locks. I don't know if anybody's heard about the Ballard locks, but it's basically like our version of the Panama Canal here in Seattle. It's 15-20 minutes from where we're going to finish up the tour, just a quick drive up to the north, and it connects the fresh water of our lakes to the saltwater of Puget Sound. Now, of course, the salmon return from the saltwater to the freshwater this time of year, and to help facilitate that migration, the locks have a fish ladder. At that fish ladder, there's underwater viewing windows, so you can go down there and watch these fish returning. A couple of us that work here on the boats decided we're going to go over there one morning, and it was really cool. I mean, there's hundreds of fish coming through here, and there's a great video that they play while you watch these fish come through. It's really pretty educational, and just kind of talks about the importance and the whole journey for these salmon. So again, that's up at the Ballard Locks. Barges off to the right with containers stacked up on top of them. So like random vehicles up there on top as well. This is basically an Alaska Marine Line barge. And you can think of this as almost like a highway from Seattle to Alaska by way of the water. If you think about how maybe inefficient it would be to have a semi-truck take a few containers from Seattle up through British Columbia, up to Alaska, and then back down to one of those cities in southeast Alaska along the coast, compared to loading a whole bunch of containers onto a barge and having a tugboat haul it up there to Alaska and take all these containers at once. It's usually a little bit more of an efficient process. So these Alaska Marine Line barges are a really important way of getting goods up to Alaska, and something we see a lot here on this end of the day. Cranes, I think these are really fascinating. First off, it just takes one person to operate these cranes. They sit up there in a little glass box. They look down through their feet through a window, cables, and they claw down below. It takes about 60 to 90 seconds. Crane delivery come
And here's the Pike Place Market, where they have the fish place where they throw fish at the customers. And then you have the bubblegum wall. This bubblegum wall was the most disgusting thing I ever seen. All those little dots are bubblegum. I hope you enjoyed your cruise along the Seattle riverfront. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos. And remember, it's up to you to make it fun and make it yours. We'll see you the next time.